Hey, Graham. Nice to meet you.
Hey, great to meet you as well. How we doing?
Doing well. What a week.
Yeah, to say the least. Feels like every day there's a new change, a new tariff rate, something going on in the world.
Right. A new take on things, a new macro, I'll call it macro take. Um, but
Yeah,
we've had really great engagement on these webinars this week. I'm sure you and Prince have chatted a little bit offline, texted a bit. Really happy to have you here. It'll be a pretty like standard intro and run through of like headlines of the day. Prince will drive that. I'll manage the Q&A, and just feel free whenever you have insight, jump on in. You're one of the panelists today. So
cool. Yeah,
yeah.
sounds good. Yeah, it's just funny as well is that with every new change, it feels like there's a new expert. Somebody out there who's like, I got
Right.
an opinion on this with limited experience, but let me tell you my opinion.
Right. Lots of folks just need a couple of talking points to take back to whomever they report to as one additional observation.
Yeah. So where are you located? Are you in New York?
I'm in New York. Yeah. You're in
Nice.
Texas. Did I see that?
Yeah, today I'm in Los Angeles. I'm
Oh, great.
meeting with a few customers. So I'm out here on the West Coast, and I messaged Prince. I was like, "Wait, this is 4 o'clock Eastern?" He's like, "Yes." I was like, "Okay, cool. No, we're locked
Okay.
in then."
Yeah, I should have specified.
No, it's
And
all good.
did you take the certified broker exam in the last couple of years?
So I took it when I turned 18. So when I turned 18, I was like, "What am I going to do with my life? Do I go to college or do I commit to what my family's been doing for a few decades?" So did that, and then found out quickly that just the license doesn't get you a whole lot. So let's go to college as well. So
Got
yeah,
it.
and then I worked at Flexport for about 5 years, and then that really kind of got me back into this world.
Great. Yeah, I've had a couple friends who have been through there over the past decade or so. I was in San Francisco for about 6 years prior to moving
Okay.
to New York 5 years ago. So, okay, I have to take care of a
Yep.
couple
No
of
worries.
annoying logistics things to get the LinkedIn live stream going
Go for
and
it.
make sure that we don't have some really wild feedback. It's a little bit touchy, so I'm going to hop off video, but I'll be back for you in just a minute.
Cool. See ya.
Cool. All right. Thanks for all of our early attendees here. We'll give folks just a couple of minutes to file in. Probably get started about 4:03. Graham, great to see you. We'll introduce you in just a minute here. I'll throw up our deck. Um, as we touched on earlier, we've been running these webinars daily, given all of the exciting news and ups and downs of the week. Had really great engagement from the audience and have a great special guest today. So just a couple minutes, guys, we'll get going. And our other panelist, Prince, will be joining us as well.
Hello, hello.
Hey, Prince. Everybody is very on time today. This is great.
There we go. Graham is a punctual guy.
Yeah.
It's a sign that we work in logistics.
That's right. That's right. Welcome, folks. Welcome. We are very, very excited. Jason, good to see you again for I think this is the third webinar this week. So I love the recurring support. Please shoot us an
Agree.
email, Jason, to see if there's any way in which we can help.
Rachel's been attending as well. Rachel, longstanding sourcing and fulfillment customer of Pietra.
There you go. Oh, glad that you love them, Jason. Awesome. We're excited. Let's give it a couple more minutes. We should have some more folks coming in. People, we have a really, really exciting agenda for today. We're going to completely change things up. I don't know if anyone was on yesterday's webinar, but we did a bit more Q&A than normal, and we blew past our time limits. So today we're going to keep it at like 15 minutes of just lightweight presentation and commentary. And then we're going to keep it at 15 minutes of presentation and commentary. And then we'll go straight into Q&A. So please, please, please come ready with your questions. Um, yeah, just ask away. This will be a great presentation. Cool. Let's give it 1 to 2 more minutes. Graham, where are you calling in from today?
Today I'm in sunny Los Angeles, but most of the time I'm in Cowtown, USA, Fort Worth. So a little different pace today, but the weather is so much better here. So I'm going to find myself after this call at least going to the beach for 10 minutes.
There we go. Wonderful.
Nice.
That'll be great. All right, let's maybe, Tyler, give it 120 seconds. We'll see if we can get a couple more stragglers coming in, and then we will kick things off.
Great.
I don't know if anyone saw, but I believe the most recent news was President Xi is going to go and visit Vietnam on Wednesday or sometime this week, right? I think I saw that in the news on
I think
Monday
so.
this upcoming week.
And
Uh,
I saw Spanish PM was visiting. She maybe before the end of this week already. So,
wow.
okay. I think we should kick it off, Prince.
Right. Why don't we go
All
ahead and
right.
do it?
Excellent. So, one more time, everybody, thanks so much for joining us to close out what's been a very, very eventful week in trade policy, news attention. There's been a lot of news, a lot of movement, in some cases, confusion. So, we're here to help you stay grounded and prepare for what's coming next. So, before I hand it over to Graham and Prince, I'm Tyler, brand and customer experience lead here at Pietra. If you ever need anything or have follow-up questions, you should have my email from the invites. You can also reach out to our customer support team, which is at creators@pietrastudio.com. That's creators@pietrastudio.com. And then we're also extremely responsive on the chat support bubble if you're ever logged into the Pietra platform for the Pietra folks on. Don't hesitate to reach out to us there. We'll get all your questions answered and you pointed in the right direction. As far as today's session goes, Graham, I'll let you introduce yourself in just a minute, but Graham Anderson, licensed customs broker and co-founder of Importal, a company that is reimagining how brands approach international trade compliance using AI. And then our resident in-house expert, Prince Ghosh, CEO of Factored Quality, has been helping us make sense of all these policies, how they'll affect your sourcing, your operations, and cost structures in the months ahead. So I'm going to go ahead and throw the deck up. Prince, you want to give a quick intro, kick things off here?
Do it. Let's do it. Let's do it. Really excited, folks. And Ro should also be hopping on in just a second to help co-moderate, Tyler.
Oh,
Awesome. So
nice.
we've got a great agenda today, guys. We've got about 36 of you folks, maybe a couple more. We'll get up to 40. Welcome back, everyone. For anyone who has been coming to these daily, Jason and a few others, big shout out to all of you folks, and thanks for the continued support. We are glad to hear that these have been helpful. As Tyler mentioned, my name is Prince. I'm the founder and CEO of a company called Factored Quality. We help consumer goods brands run quality control on their products across their global supply chains. We were recently acquired by Pietra. And so, yeah, we're excited to dive in. And Tyler, maybe just go to the next slide. Cool,
Great.
folks. Just as a quick reminder for everyone on here, Pietra is a modern platform that helps consumer brands, importers like yourself, make it easier to bring your products from factory floor to front door. We have tools, a suite of software and services for every part of the supply chain journey, from sourcing to QC to fulfillment, and then finally to sales, marketing, and distribution to help consumer goods brands, e-commerce brands, sellers, and merchants like yourself. And we're actually being joined live here by Ro Trivedi. Ro, can you hear us, Ro?
Rose,
Hey, Jay?
Rose here. He just popped off video. Ro, are
Cool.
you with
Sorry,
us?
guys. I'm in. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
No,
No,
you're great.
no worries
Right
at
on
all
time.
here. Everyone wanting to welcome another co-host here. Ro is founder CEO of Pietra. So he and Tyler will help kind of co-moderate as we dive in. And then why don't we go into the next slide? We are super excited, as Tyler mentioned, to have a special guest with us today. We've been promising this for over a week as we hit north now of 40 participants. We've been all week promising you folks that we're going to bring on someone who is actually a licensed customs broker. And so I'm really excited, folks, today to introduce my good friend, Graham Anderson. Graham is the founder of a company called Importal, which is an AI-powered customs and compliance platform for e-commerce brands and importers. He previously was a customs broker at Flexport. His claim to fame, I believe, is over COVID. He personally imported, what was it, 100 million units of PPE yourself, Graham, that you cleared?
Yeah, it was a lot. I think I lost track after the first 5 million. So we'll call it whatever number
Wow.
we've
That's pretty
landed at
sweet.
recently. Yeah.
Cool. So if you guys got, masks and gloves over COVID, you have Graham to thank for personally going in and clearing those via customs. And I think Graham's fun fact is he comes from a long family line of customs brokers. So Graham, maybe you want to give the audience 30-second on yourself and just give them a brief intro.
Yeah, totally. I appreciate the intro and thanks for having me today. So like Prince mentioned, I worked at Howard Hartree and Flexport and now the co-founder and CEO of Importal. The third generation customs broker is quite comical. I joke with people that I compete with my dad and my grandpa by being here today. So it's made Christmas and Thanksgiving rather awkward. We've moved past it and we're making great strides. But yeah, so Importal, right? Our vision is to make trade compliance automated for every brand, right? So if you look at the larger companies of the world, they have this trade compliance department internally, while mid markets who the SMBs of the world can't afford to have that domain expertise in house. So we built an AI stack that allows anybody to be able to have that domain expertise in house for a cheaper price. So in today's market, it feels like it's a prerequisite to have that domain expert in house, and that's what we offer all of our customers.
Amazing. And Graham, you are a licensed holding customs broker yourself also, correct?
Correct. Yeah, I took the exam when I was 18, fresh out of high school. Didn't know what I wanted to do. Found out that you only needed to be 18 to be a U.S. citizen, so I ran and took the test. Uh, yeah, and then realized that that's not enough. You need to go do more with your life. So went to college and ended up working at Flexports, and here we are.
Amazing. So, it's funny, we always start these with Ro and I saying we are not licensed customs brokers. You cannot take this as financial or legal advice.
We're
I
just
still
homies just talking. We're just homies just talking.
exactly right. I still will say, this is not financial or legal advice, but Graham is a licensed U.S. Customs broker, so is actually able to give specific and acute advice on how to classify and how to import your products. So, guys, this is a opportunity for everyone in the audience to please dump in questions into the Q&A. Like I said, we'll allocate a generous amount of time to go through some of those. So
Yeah,
please start adding in.
yeah, and just call out as well. Importal is also a licensed customs brokerage. I didn't plug that in there as well. So while I hold the hall pass, Importal does as well.
Amazing. All right,
Great.
let's dive in. So where we actually start, Tyler, if you want to hit the next slide, just a quick refresher for everyone here on the call. Just a reminder, right? What is happening right now in the world of global supply chain is this insane fluctuation on import duties and tariffs that are being put onto goods being imported into the country. So the thing to remind everyone and just remember is Tariffs are a lever that the government uses to improve or try and negotiate relationships around global trade with different trading partners. The obvious primary country that is in all the news right now is the US's relationship with China, and large parts of these increased tariffs are driven by the Trump administration's uh, desire to try and reduce American dependency on Chinese imports. Although in this process, the rest of the world is also being affected as well. Um, Tariffs and import duties are paid by ultimately you guys as the importer, assuming most of you on this call here are the importer, whether or not you're paying these directly or whether or not it's your customs broker paying these, and Graham can talk through some of the specifics, or whether or not your factory is working with a customs broker and then you were just receiving a commercial invoice that says, hey, this is the amount that was paid, this is how much you have to pay back, varies, and we can get into some of those specifics. Again, just as a reminder, the way that these duties, the way that these import taxes are calculated are based on what is your product classified as, the value of those goods, and then what is the relationship between where you're exporting the product and importing your product. And then last but not least, like we always say, you need to speak to a licensed customs broker to be able to actually get legal and financial advice to be able to accurately calculate your duties, your tariffs. And then the one thing that we'll remind everyone always is while this is a tumultuous time, please do not try and game the system. These are laws, it's like the equivalent of not filing your taxes and the government coming after you. There are huge implications and penalties for brands that falsify or do not pay their import duties. Graham, anything else just to add on to here?
Yeah, I think the important piece you touched on there was not filing your taxes. Something that importers kind of fail to recognize is that after you clear customs, it's not over for you with your liability with the government. Customs has you on the hook for 5 years after import, and they can come and audit you and find any of these, kind of, sketchy things that you did in the past to mitigate these new tariffs. So yeah, just a friendly reminder that the date of import does not dictate your liability. It lasts for years after import.
Got it. Wow. Very, very good to know. This is serious stuff, guys. So let's dive in. Tyler, shall we go to the next slide? Cool, folks. Actually, do one more jumper. I actually just hit a refresh. Go to the next one. Awesome. So what we have together, oh, go back one, Tyler, sorry, to the table. Awesome. So what we have here together, folks, is just a brief timeline of everything that has been happening in and around the world of duties and tariffs. We've been tracking these every single day. The big news that we talked about yesterday was, I believe, Wednesday afternoon, late Wednesday afternoon, the Trump administration said to the world, hey, we are actually going to pause on the reciprocal stacked tariffs from all countries except for China. So imports from Vietnam, from Korea, from India, from all these other countries will still be subject to the 10% baseline tariff that the Trump administration started to apply last week, but are for 90 days given a hiatus on the stacked and reciprocal tariffs. That said, the import tariffs on China specifically have continued to increase. So that 10% baseline is in play, but more reciprocal tariffs have been stacked on top. I believe the number that we are getting to right now is, Graham, do you have it off the top of your head? Are we at 135%, 145%? What is the number?
I don't have to off the top of my head. I'll have to look into it, but it's really high, especially when you consider that there's also a general tariff, Section 301, all these different tariffs. It can really get rather high. We had an importer the other day that was facing down a 200% tariff out of China, just all together. So it's crazy.
Absolutely insane. Tyler, I don't know if you're able to pull the real number behind the scenes, but we'll pull the latest and greatest. This number seems to be changing every single hour. And the last thing to note for folks that's not, perhaps as pertinent, although I do see that there's a couple of suppliers on the webinar. Um, China is hitting right back. And so China is continuing to increase their import tariffs for US exported goods that are coming into China. And so this is definitely getting volatile. It's not looking the prettiest, but this is something that's changing every day, and we're continuing to track and monitor folks. So that is the latest of what is going on here. And then Tyler, want to go into the next slide? Cool. The one other thing just to note, folks, we've been talking about this for the last couple of days, and Graham, feel free to add on to here as well. On Liberation Day last week, the Trump administration announced that the U.S. law under de minimis entry, so this is colloquially referred to as the shipping loophole that many large importers, most notably the Sheins and the Temus of the world, have leveraged to be able to import small, low-value goods into the U.S. without having to pay a duty. The Trump administration announced on Liberation Day that this would be going away for China and Hong Kong effective immediately, with some loose guidance on this being continued for the rest of the world also. So we've been doing a countdown. May 2nd seems to continue to hold strong as the key date. That means that there's about 20 or so days for U.S. e-commerce sellers to be able to import goods under de minimis before all de minimis packages that historically were tax exempt will also be subject to import duties and tariffs. And so there's a lot happening right now. Again, if you're an e-commerce seller, if you're a drop shipper, if you're a merchant, this is maybe in large part what you're doing. So just something else to keep an eye out for here. Graham, anything you want to add on?
No, I'll say that even before this change, coming on May 2nd, the writing was on the wall when customs mandated that you can't clear de minimis after the arrival of the goods. So it used to be kind of a free flow, hey, it's already arrived, let's do de minimis and get the stuff out. Now, and we had this, it happened numerous times, as soon as the airway bill gets arrived by the airline, it is officially transitioned into a consumption entry. You owe duties on it. So even for those who are considering in the short term using de minimis, please be sure to be aligned with your broker, your forwarder, to ensure that the de minimis is filed before the cargo arrives, or you will wake up to a tax bill that you did not want to pay.
Wow, absolutely insane. Graham, is there any guidance or thought that you are hearing in and around the ecosystem on when these de minimis, when the de minimis laws will be removed for countries outside of China? So if you're shipping de minimis from Vietnam, Korea, India, another country in the world.
Yeah, I think it's a little more out in the future. Just being candid here, it really comes down to the infrastructure and the labor constraints that customs has, right? I think we saw a few months ago where they said, "Hey, de minimis is paused for the short period of time," and it was chaos at airports like JFK, LAX, so on and so forth. So I think that we will see obviously this effective May 2nd date impact China, but I think there will be more of a longer term solution for the other countries, just given the fact that U.S. Customs can't handle millions of small parcels coming through every port of entry and try to manage that. So I think it really comes down to a wait and see approach on that. But personally speaking, I think it's a little long term for any sort of worldwide ban.
Cool, makes sense.
Excellent. And just since we're on the topic, a question from an anonymous attendee asking if it's possible to split up a shipment into less than $800 parcels to qualify for de minimis prior to May 2nd. And Graham, you can jump in on this one. And as of 20 minutes ago, U.S. tariffs on Chinese imports, 145%, and the reciprocal tariffs from China on U.S. imports, 125%. So we're looking at some pretty extreme figures there. But Graham, any commentary on the question?
Yeah, really, the law is less than 800 per consignee, i.e., per person per day. So if it was one person buying the goods, there's no way to really split it up to make it work. But if you are numerous people buying the product, you could split it up in that way. But if it's a business that is buying the goods for less or a little over $800, there's no way to really split it up and mitigate that. You would fall into the informal entry if it's non-China, to be specific, which does have kind of a lesser tax environments. You're not subject to the traditional MPF HMF. You pay a lower informal fee. So even if you are kind of over the 800 mark, but less than 2,500, you can find yourself in a lower kind of tax threshold than the traditional formal entry with duties, MPF, and HMF.
Got it. So the range, Graham, is saying that above 800, under 2,500, you still may be able to import products with a lower duty fee than if it was a $10,000 order that's being imported into the US. A 10K order would be subject to the 145% or whatever was the most recent number that Tyler shared.
Sadly, you'd still get hit with these crazy tariffs of 145%. It's more so the kind of smaller taxes, the merchandise processing, harbor maintenance fees that hit ocean and air shipments. When you do an informal entry less than 2,500, those are, in essence waived, and you now just pay a small, I believe it's $2.62 is the new informal fee. So it's a lower threshold compared to, the big boy clearance of a formal entry.
Got it. Very, very cool. Makes a ton of sense. Okay, why don't we do this? And what we can do is jump into some in-depth Q&A, and then maybe Tyler at the very, very end, Tyler and Ro, we can save a couple of minutes of what brands can do to help navigate this time period. So Graham, before we jump into the actual Q&A in here, one of the questions that folks all the time ask, and I think is worth re-asking today is, tell us just a little bit more about who gets to decide about. Let me rephrase. Tell us a little bit more about who your customs broker should be. Like, chat a little bit about the different dynamics of whether you're relying on your factory to ship your goods, what the situation is, whether you work directly as an importer with a customs broker, what happens if you're working with a freight forwarder? Do freight forwarders typically have customs brokers under the hood? Just give us a layout of the landscape and different ways of shipping and clearing product.
Yeah, totally. So typically, kind of in the incumbent space, you would see a freight forwarder kind of have that rolled up, think Flexport, DHL, Expeditors, right? They have that freight forwarding and customs brokerage arm. And then you have the option of going direct to a customs broker like Importal, right? And I think the important change in the environment that we've seen is that you really don't want your freight forwarder to be your customs broker, right? They are dedicated to getting your freight from point A to point B, and that's what truly matters, on-time performance. But as the world has changed with regulations constantly, moving, you need somebody who is dedicated to just customs of your supply chain, right? So that's where we're kind of seeing, and where the success of Importal has continued to grow, is just this continued segmentation of forwarder and broker. And I know that can sound like, oh, I got too many chefs in the kitchen. What's going on there? It's pretty elementary for a broker. They simply just get plugged into the supply chain via email, via whatever the traditional communication path you have. And they just off to the races. They're working with the forwarder, right? So it's kind of, you pass it off to them, they take care of it, and they work with the government on your behalf. So yeah, I hope that answers it.
Totally. And Tyler, feel free to add in here, but I think we had a question the other day that I want to resurface, which was, what is the value, Graham, of you going out as an importer, as a merchant, like who are on our calls, of finding a customs broker yourself, or rather relying on your factory to handle shipping and handle customs on your behalf, and working with a customs broker and a freight forwarder that your factory provides? Tyler, tell me if I got that correctly and remember correctly.
I think you got it. And maybe I'll add, the audience for this answer might be a population of folks who are importing by carton rather than a full container, right?
Yeah, Graham, wanna give a quick answer there?
Yeah, totally. So it really comes down to Incoterms, right? If you are acting as the import of record and you're clearing customs under your EIN, you should be the one procuring who your customs broker is, right? You should be the one working intimately with them. Given that's, like I mentioned, the world's changing so quickly, you just don't want to rely on somebody that you don't feel comfortable calling at 1 a.m. and saying, hey, man, what's going on here? How do I handle this? So really building intimacy with your customs broker is super important. And we joke around, there's a saying in freight forwarding and brokerage, you date your forwarder, all price, base, but you marry your customs broker. And that is true more so than ever. You need somebody who has your back 24/7 to ensure that, when duties do change or regulations do change, that you're not waking up to a tax bill that's your foreign supplier's broker just hits you with no context. Somebody is deeply engaged with you and truly has your back, has your best interest.
Makes a ton of sense.
Great.
Super helpful.
And maybe to piggyback on that, question from an anonymous attendee, what are the average costs of having a broker, cost benefits of brokers? And I'll add, like, at what size of business does it really make sense to start thinking about this budget-wise?
Great question.
Yeah, I mean, the cost of customs brokerage is rather nominal, right? It's $100 for a shipment to come in the United States, traditional kind of air freight, clearing under a master house airway bill. But I think the real added benefit there is, think about it, that you in essence have a trade attorney on your sideline. You are paying on a per transaction basis for the customs clearance, but now this person is open and available for communication via email on a phone call at any time, right? So not as expensive as a trade attorney, but a lot of the same value add as that they can give you. We have that hall pass, we have that licensed brokerage. So really just being able to be intimate and the price is worth it. If anybody's quoting you anything over 200 for clearance, please talk to me. I think you're in a bad spot there.
Very, very helpful.
Great
Tyler,
answer.
shall we go down the list and knock some of these Q&As out?
Yeah,
Yeah.
let's do it.
Ro, you want to take one?
Oh yeah, I'll take one because I think this is a phone for Graham, maybe Prince. I sell a mix. So this is from Nikosi. I sell a mix of products sourced on Pietra and Alibaba. How can I pay the tax if I'm ordering directly from a seller on Alibaba as well? Is there a way to be proactive? And I think the similar one is from Lorenzo. If I have projects in China that are in the early stage development, should we continue to look for other options? Should I continue buying it where I am currently buying it from? So kind of they
Oh,
go hand in hand. I think people are trying to ask, if you have a mix and you're ordering from different parts of the world, how do you ensure that you're paying the right tax? Should you look to like consolidate it somewhere or keep it? It's okay if it's from different places.
totally. Graham, maybe want to take this. So let's phrase the question in terms of if you are sourcing product from a marketplace, how do duties and tariffs work for those products that are being sourced from a marketplace typically?
Yeah, totally. So it really comes down to the country of origin of the product that dictates, what is the tariff that you're going to pay on those products. So it can get rather complex. If I have 100 different items all sourced from around the world, you technically have 100 different tax liabilities that need to be calculated. So our recommendation is, what Importal does so well is, at the time of PO or the time of even talking to a vendor, our platform allows you to automate those tax calculations, allowing you to have 100% accuracy down to the last penny in those landed costs, so that before you even decide to ship to the United States, you have an understanding of, what am I going to owe and how much am I going to have to pass on to the customer. And I'll let you
Makes
touch
sense.
on the other. I'll let you touch on the other question, my prince.
Yeah, I can chat about Lorenzo's piece. Lorenzo, if you have projects in China in the early development stage, should you continue or look for other suppliers? And Ro, feel free to opine in here as well. Look, Lorenzo, I think the reality is this, right? Um, the news and the Trump administration's directive around these tariffs are changing every single day. And next week we could all wake up and we could be, it could be 9 a.m. on Tuesday morning, and we might find out that all of the stacked tariffs on China have disappeared overnight, or we can find out that they have increased 2x. The general directive that we've been giving most of our brands, at least sourcing through Pietra, working with factor quality, is do not panic. And the worst thing that you can do is make, a decision for the next 5 years of your company of setting up manufacturing, which is a not simple and easy thing just based on what's happening, but it is worth exploring your options. And I think this is where marketplaces that have a large amount of supply variety, and Ro, feel free to dive in here, become particularly valuable as you start to understand what other countries can I move to? Can I redomesticate production into the US? What are even my options on hand? So that's the general approach we would suggest here. Oh, anything you wanna add there?
No, I think that makes perfect sense. I wish I had something to add. I usually do, Prince, but
All,
no, that was
all
great.
good. All good. Tyler, shall we keep going down the list?
Let's do it. Um,
Lots of
does
questions today, guys. We'll try and get through all of them.
Yes, we'll try to do a rapid fire round here. Does shipping DDP eliminate the buyer from having to pay tariffs? Why is this not talked about more? Can DDP shipping go away? So lots of concern about DDP there. And then, um, is there enough material transformation to avoid China tariffs by shipping bottles from China to Korea to be filled and repackaged and then shipped to the USA? That's from an anonymous attendee.
All right, Graham, all you. Let's start with the DDP question, and then we can go into the material transformation.
Yeah, so I mean, in that DDP situation, you as the U.S. buyer are not, the importer of record, so the tariff liability is not on you, right? And I don't think we'll see DDP go away because at the end of the day, customs is still getting their tax revenue from that shipment.
And Graham, I'm so sorry, real quick, before you dive in, could you explain for the audience what is DDP?
Yeah, duties delivered paid, meaning that the foreign supplier overseas is going to act as the importer of record. They're going to be the one that sets up the tax structure with US Customs and they pay the taxes on your behalf. With that, though, right, they have the ability to kind of mark that up to you as a consumer. You don't have the visibility of what those taxes actually are. You're just being passed, an invoice for the price of the goods. So we recommend to our customers, especially today, it's better to be on the front lines of tariffs rather than being, a layer two, kind of getting that secondary invoice from a foreign supplier through DDP. But to the point, I don't think we'll see it go away. Customs really gets their revenue still through that process. One thing that we're seeing from just the conversations with customs is that they're looking closer into the value of the goods under DDP because there's something called first sale. There's a lot of ways to kind of manipulate the value, which therefore lowers the tax liability. So I would just say that DDP as a whole will get more interest from our government, but I don't think it'll go away.
Cool. Super helpful. And maybe we can now take the second question. And this is perhaps one of the most common and hot questions across the entire week, I would say, right, Tyler and Ro, which is if I start my production process in China, but then I send my goods to another country, Korea was the question asked, sometimes it's Canada, sometimes it's Mexico, and I do something else to the product, can I then import it to the USA? And do I pay Chinese tariffs or do I pay that secondary country's tariffs? What is the guidance here, Graham?
Oh, I love this. I feel like I get this question all day. I feel like I probably have about 40 emails just about this topic right here. Substantial transformation in the eyes of customs, just in super elementary way. It has to change classifications, meaning, I have a bunch of yarn, right? And that is one classification. And then I send it to South Korea where it is substantially transformed into a sweater. That's now a new tariff that has been applied, right? It changed from one tariff to another. And that is really the way to look at it is my product really going through a substantial transformation? My favorites, and you should go look at some of the customs broker exams, but there's one about fish caught in the sea that are sent to England that put batter on them and they went from raw fish to battered fish. And it's like that would be a substantial transformation because it changed classifications or tariffs. So it really is a matter of did it start as one thing and change to another? And if not, then there's no way of manipulating country of origin and taking advantage of that opportunity.
Cool. And then maybe one quick tag along there, Graham, for folks. This is another question that's been asked. What if the good is making a intermediate stop and being warehoused in another country? So many folks manufacture in China, warehouse in Canada or Mexico, and then import into the US. What's the guidance there?
Yeah, customs really only cares about where was this product made, right? Where was it first put in development? They don't care where you sent it, what was the supply chain look like. It all comes down to the country of origin of the goods that really dictates, how is this going to be brought into the United States and what is the tax liability for you? So yeah, just to double down on that. Origin matters, but it's the country of origin of where it was made that is the big, kind of driving function for tariffs.
And I have a question here from the other day that I'm actually pulling forward because I think it's very interesting. What happens if you like to build on that? Let's say you bought something years ago and it's in a warehouse and then you want to ship it in, and you don't have the receipt, for example, from the first invoice. Will that be sent back? Will it be like trapped at customs? Are you like responsible for going back to your vendors and getting another thing created? How do you deal with a situation like that?
Yeah, so I mean, customs allows for what's called a pro forma invoice, which is basically like self-generated. Hey, these are the details I'm aware of, right? So I know how much I paid the supplier and stuff like that. And then there's a reconciliation process, right? So you can basically say, I don't know the true value of the goods today. I'm going to pay the tariffs on what I know. And over the next couple of months, as I learn more, I will go back and I will refile my customs entry and pay the additional tariffs, or maybe a lower amount if it was less, in value than what I had originally declared. So that should never hold you up. That's work with a customs broker. They'll guide you through those really intricate processes.
Super helpful. All right, Tyler, shall we
Great.
power hour with 10 minutes on the clock?
Yes, and I'm going to pair a couple of questions from Marlis and Rachel about de minimis and more specifically timelines. So, will the de minimis exception apply to products shipped prior to May 2nd, even if the order actually makes it to the US after that date? Or does the exemption only apply for products arriving before May 2nd? And Rachel asked this question a little bit more generally. Are tariff charges determined based on departure date from China or arrival date at US Customs? Can you just provide a little bit of insight into exactly when cutoff times might apply, when the U.S. determines the date that a tariff will apply?
Yeah, totally. So for the de minimis part, it'll be goods have to arrive before then. I haven't seen any exemptions similar to some of the reciprocal tariffs that have gone out where it was a, hey, it departs by this date and arrives by that date. Traditionally, right, most of these de minimis shipments are coming in via air console. So these are hitting real quick, right? There's not this big lag time of departure to arrival. It should hit within, 24 hours or so. And what was the second question? Sorry.
The second question, Graham, was not about de minimis, but it was specifically about, let's call it a full container of goods or an LCL shipment. The specific question was if I have a $10,000 shipment via sea freight from China today at the
Mm.
145% tariff rate, and it arrives at US Customs in 1 month, and let's say the tariff amounts have changed, either gone up higher or lower, which tariff amount will be considered? The tariff upon the date of departure from China
Yeah.
or the tariff upon the date of arrival?
Yeah, so it's a tariff upon arrival that matters, right? And this is also why customs brokers are super important in this. How it works is the tariff is established by when does the plane, train, or boat arrive in the United States? So that's like the first layer of establishing tariffs. And then has the customs been cleared at that time or thereafter? So let's say that your goods arrived May 1st. There's a tariff change for better or for worse on May 2nd. Let's say for worse, and arrives May 1st, but your broker doesn't end up clearing until let's say May 3rd. You'll get sucked into the net new tariff environments because customs wasn't cleared in time for that new tariff. So with any of these new tariffs coming into play, it's super important to, once again, be intimate with your broker, have somebody who has your back because, it can go downhill rather quick.
Got it. Graham, so just to confirm, there's been a couple of mixed messages on here and just want to make sure that it's 100% clear. So goods that leave, for example, China, and that are in the ocean in transit over a certain period of time, if there are tariff changes during that period of time, those will be applied when the goods hit domestic stateside in the US, correct?
Correct. It's a little more complicated, I'll say. Right now with the reciprocal tariffs, there are exemptions for, hey, goods were in transit, now you get the lower
Yep.
rates, right? But let's say there's a net new lower rates. You can say, I'm not going to apply that exemption. I'm just going to flat out clear my goods normally with no exemption and take advantage of the lower rate. So I wish it was as easy as, 1 + 2 = 3. I think we're finding ourselves in a really complicated state, rather fluid there.
Makes
Interesting. And I agree that messages have felt mixed on that. So thanks for clarifying, Graham. I'm just going to ask this follow-up question from the same individual. So I have a $10,000 shipment on hold at a factory in China right now. Do you have any advice or recommendations on whether to wait or to ship, when to ship?
Yeah, that's a good one. I think just based on the rhetoric in the markets, I don't see these China tariffs actually decreasing in the near future. So if you're kind of waiting and wishing for a decrease, I personally don't see that happening. I think it's time to ship. It's time to, bear these costs and, really just kind of take it head on. There are mitigation options that exist out there. First and foremost, a bonded warehouse, a foreign trade zone where duties are not owed until you take the cargo out. So think about it, you bring the goods in the United States and then your customer buys it from you. You're applying your tariff amounts at the time of, being paid versus kind of the standard way of bringing it in, paying the tariffs, then your customer pays you 2 months later, and now you've already ate those costs. So there are some ways to get around it, or not get around it, but defer it. And then secondly, I'll say there's a program out there called periodic monthly statement. And all that means is, for any goods cleared in April, you don't owe the tariffs until the 15th working day of the following month. So let's say you had goods that arrived today on April 11th, you don't owe customs until May 21st for those goods. So tariffs are not going to hit you like immediately. They're not going to, come out of your bank account as soon as they arrive. There is, a little bit of time before that happens. So there's a lot of strategic things, to Prince's point, don't make quick decisions about moving suppliers. Let's make some established game plans for the long term. And periodic monthly statement is one that will pay off for, decades to come.
And it seems like Jason.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, this is a great one. I was just about to type in for her, which is, So maybe a short one and then a longer one that I think will be helpful to everyone. So the short one is, given all this hoopla, let's say, will things take longer to enter the country now? Is there a better, should everyone go to air, or is this probably shouldn't have an impact to how long it takes. And then the second one I'll just tee it up, which is Jacinto saying that foreign trade zone has been a blessing. And I think it would be really awesome if everyone on the channel got a little bit of that insight and talk a little about foreign trade zones.
Yeah, I'll touch on the kind of the transit time. I don't think you'll see really big impacts to transit time. However, with these tariffs now being paused the 90 days, personally over here on our side, we saw a giant influx of book shipments. People saying, "Get this out there, give me the goods as soon as possible." So you may see, it won't be kind of the Armageddon of COVID here in the port of Los Angeles where it was absolute madness, but I think you'll see more congestion than you're used to. And that's just important to work with your forwarder, set expectations, right? Ensure that at least the goods are being recovered to not get stuck up in a last free day kind of demurrage, timeline there. So yeah, I wouldn't be too concerned about transit times, stuff like that. I think it'll be kind of similar to how we've seen it in the past, or at least the last 5 years. The foreign trade zone, happy to talk about it. It's in essence, it's just a warehouse in the United States that the government treats as an independent nation, let's call it. So it's outside the jurisdiction of customs. So you can just bring goods into this foreign trade zone. You do what's called a 214 admission, and you just don't pay the duties until you decide, I want to bring this out. And then you do it under what's called a weekly entry, to where you can consolidate all the goods that left in a single week and do it on one customs declaration versus kind of piecemealing it as it's going out of the zone. But this has been kind of a large company benefits, but is now kind of expanding with the new tariffs as an opportunity for SMB mid-market companies to take advantage of.
And well, maybe two things just to add on to their folks. Apart from foreign trade zone based warehouses, you can also have a bonded warehouse, which effectively enables the same thing, the deference of payment of duties until the goods leave the warehouse. So the really relevant part for a lot of folks on here, if you're a merchant, is these can help your cash conversion cycles during a period of time where gross margins are being eaten away in real time. So would very much try and lean into those. And the one other thing to note is if anyone ships products internationally, so if you are bringing inventory into the US, but you have customers in Canada or Mexico, if you ship the products from a warehouse that's in a free trade zone or a bonded warehouse, you don't actually ever have to pay those import duties on those products, correct, Graham? But that said, even if your warehouse is not a bonded warehouse or not in a free trade zone, if you re-export goods, you can file what is called a duty drawback, which enables you to reclaim the import tariffs paid on those products. So we have a few duty drawback partners in our ecosystem that we can definitely make interest to. Just different ways to save cash. But Graham, correct me if wrong on any of those points.
No, I feel like Prince, you're officially a licensed customs broker. You're hitting that on the head right there. That's perfect.
There you go.
Yeah.
Do
So
not listen to my advice is not legal or financial advice. Graham's can be, but mine is not, folks.
Yeah, I will say that if you do have international, kind of goods going out of the United States into Mexico or Canada, foreign trade zone is the best option, just because we love drawback. It's a great program, but there is a long time horizon of getting those refunds back. And it's also 99% of your refund. So customs is still going to hold on to a small fraction of that, for the most cost effective and kind of getting the most out of the opportunity. Foreign trade zones end up being the best opportunity for you.
Awesome. Tyler, shall we just powwow through the last couple of questions? Graham, we're going to go 10-second responses for each of these.
Let's do it. I'm just going to run down from the top here, make sure that Ryan's question gets answered. So, how important are RN numbers, and I believe RN stands for registered identification number in this case, and product labels?
Graham, you wanna hit that one?
I think that's one that's a little outside my jurisdiction as a broker. If anybody else got something, more than happy to let you take it.
No worries. TLDR is product label should be accurate. Ryan, if there's something, very specific you want to ask there about like product labels for different product classifications, let us know. And happy to take that one offline.
Yeah, great. From Emma, I just started a brand and I've gone through the sampling process with the factory in China. I've even paid the initial production fee, I'm now worried that this is going to be unfeasible. I'm not sure if I should continue to try to source somewhere else. And I'm going to pair this with, what should we be asking our Chinese factories?
Yeah, great question. This is actually a slide in our deck. I can maybe grab this one and we'll share out the deck afterwards, folks. So the big thing to note, and Ro and I have been talking about this all week to brands, is that look, these Chinese factories, these are businesses too, right? They need your business just as much as you need their ability. So the biggest advice that we always give folks is keep an open line of communication with your factories. In many cases, factories are actively dropping their cost per unit to help brands out with their gross margins. In many cases, factories are eating some portion of the projected import duties or tariffs on these products. So just keep the conversation going with your factories. Cool.
Great.
Uh,
What countries do you recommend that emulate China? Ro, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, I mean, this is not maybe a bit of a loaded question, maybe not. So I think that it's probably not super accurate to think about in that way. China is an N of one in terms of like the vastness of production and their capabilities at speed, quality, cost, all that stuff. They've built their economy on this. I think a way to think about this is you're going to have to go to different regions of the world and start sampling with different factories and see, which factories can actually match the quality that you're expecting, the speed that you're expecting, the price that you're expecting. It is not, and I'll give you kind of some shortcuts there, but I think there's many parts of the world that can probably deliver on most of the capabilities. Of course, cost and access to raw materials is one of the biggest things. So what does that really mean? Well, that means that naturally what's going to happen and what is happening is areas surrounding China, which are the easiest to get the raw materials from, are becoming more and more practical because they are the quickest to basically get the access to the raw materials and then develop the capabilities. In many cases, the Chinese factories themselves will go set up shop with, a factory in Vietnam, for example. So what I would do is I would, first talk to your factories. They might already have one in a neighboring region. Maybe they have a factory in Vietnam, like many of the Chinese factories on Pietra do. But I think that it's going to take a while for the world at large to get up to speed with the capability of China as a manufacturing hub for the entire world. So as
so
Graham said, this is not the time to like wait and hope that nothing like it just goes back to the way it was 2 years ago. I think the world is going to have to build up their capabilities. The world will build up their capabilities most likely. It will take some time. And the easiest thing you could do is try and work with neighboring regions because you can hope that they've already kind of made the pushes outside of China, like Vietnam is a great one. But don't be scared of sampling factories in Europe. And for some products like t-shirts and merch and stuff, you can actually do it in the US pretty well. Um, so I think the short answer to that is talk to your factory to see if they have something in a neighboring region so they have access to the raw materials and they can do that pretty quickly. You might get some luck there. And if not, start based on your product, start sampling different factories in different areas.
amazing. And maybe final two questions. Are many people moving manufacturing back to the US yet from Meg Robertson? Meg, the answer is a lot of people are exploring whether or not it's actually possible is the biggest question up in the air. The US is great at many things. High volume, high throughput manufacturing is not one of those as of late. So, like Rose said, it will most likely try and happen, but factories don't get spun up overnight. They take some time, they take some effort. So definitely, explore factories across the US. We are adding on the Pietra marketplace side, not to make this too much about us, but we are actively adding new factories onto the Pietra network that are domestic in the US every single day. And Graham, last question for you. Would shipping product from a factory warehouse in China directly to US customers avoid tariff fees rather than shipping the full shipment to the US first and then shipping orders to customers? So basically, if you hit a parcel network directly, what are the implications there?
Yeah, so I think you're looking at the de minimis kind of threshold there, and that's going away. But there's also been some net new stuff in the kind of mail parcel system, right? Where I think they're changed it to where there's an official tariff associated with that. So I think anything coming out of China, it's really difficult to, and almost impossible to get around these duties and tariffs. So yeah.
Cool. Super helpful. Well, folks, thank you so much. In the last couple of minutes, Graham, any final words of advice for everyone?
No, I think it's just, one thing is just work with a customs broker, right? Don't go on LinkedIn and post some, random guy out there talking about customs brokerage. Find somebody with that license, trust them, build a relationship with them. You need somebody like that on your sideline right now. And then going back to the kind of periodic monthly statements, stuff like that, there are legacy systems in the United States that can help you defer duties and help you really manage this crisis. So, yeah, but thanks for having me. It was a great time. Appreciate it.
Amazing.
Thank you,
And
Graham.
one of the
And
things that we'll make sure we do real quick is we'll make sure that we get Importal and Graham on as a licensed customs broker through the Pietra platform that anyone here who's a Pietra user can directly go and access. Ro, just on that note, any last couple of words on Pietra, the sourcing marketplace, and the value of the platform?
No, I think we're trying to keep these webinars not to be so salesy, but just a reminder for the members that are here, there's a lot of awesome value that you can get from your membership that you might not have explored until now. So remember, if you want to talk to a transportation provider to move stuff from point A to point B, go into the fulfillment hub, click on the book freight button and get to a transportation provider. And then of course the sourcing marketplace as well. If you click on the sourcing hub, you'll see thousands and thousands of factories from all around the world. I would suggest reaching out to them directly in the platform or outside of the platform. You get access to this worldwide directory of factories. So please take advantage of the membership if you have it. There's a lot of ways to help here. And then of course, if you're not a member, please sign up and you can get immediate access to it.
Amazing. And Tyler, what's the best way for folks to get in touch for any help that they need?
yes, one more time. Best way to reach out to the Pietra team is to reach out to creators@pietrastudio.com. We're very responsive to email. And then for the Pietra members out there, you have access to chat support. Anytime you're logged into the Creator Hub, just click that little bubble. We'll get back to you pretty swiftly. I've had a couple of questions about webinar recordings. These will absolutely be shared out and emailed to everybody who registered for any of the webinars this week. And they'll also be on our Help Center. Lots of FAQ answers on the Help Center. So that's my little plug for that. And guys, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy daily schedules to do this. Ton of engagement. I mean, 20 plus questions every day for 5 days in a row is pretty solid. So thank you for me, Graham. Great to have you as a guest.
Amazing. Graham, friend of the pod. Appreciate you coming on.
Friend of the pod.
Thanks for having me.
Friend of the
Love
pod.
it.
Thank you.
Take
Bye.
care.
Later, guys.